we are okay with starting. We would start our today's session. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, friends, welcome to our event dedicated to the Mediterranean, a complex geographical and geopolitical area that connects, I would say, but obviously at the same time it divides as well. More than 25 years after the Barcelona Declaration and 10 years after the Arab Spring, a strengthened Euro-Mediterranean partnership remains a strategic imperative for the European Union. The EU failed to accomplish many or any of its objectives announced in the Barcelona Declaration. Mediterranean was defined there as an area of common peace, stability, security, shared prosperity. Europe-Mediterranean free trade area has not become reality, and initiatives to strengthen human rights or democracies had achieved nothing. One would say that, or many people would say that. A major reason for the lack of success is that the EU was torn between values and interests. The new agenda for the Mediterranean proposes to relaunch the Euro-Mediterranean partnership and unleash the region's untapped potentials. Many political, socio-economic and security challenges in the Southern Neighbourhood remain to be addressed, while some have been even worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. Unsolved conflicts continue to weigh heavily on the economies and societies of the region. Furthermore, new power struggles are taking place in the Mediterranean, especially in its eastern part. Is it conceptual process of South Europeanization still alive? Why the Union for Mediterranean as an idea looks great and perfect on the paper, but somehow it doesn't function in the real life? What are the expectations and challenges of the Mediterranean, and how do they look like from the European shore? To some of these questions, hopefully our keynote speakers will give us a clue, an answer, hint to think about. It is my great pleasure to welcome today first Valeria Talbot in Milano, co-head of the Middle East and North Africa Center in charge of Middle East Studies at the Institute for International Political Studies, ISPI. Good afternoon, buongiorno.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much for being with us. And then we go to Barcelona as well. A great pleasure and honor to warmly welcome Mr. Senén Florensa PALAU, President of the Executive Committee of the European Institute of the Mediterranean.
Hello.
Good afternoon to you as well, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So it is planned that this session lasts for an hour and a half. After two presentations or interventions, we would have discussion part. The only thing that Ms. Talbot kindly has asked us is that she leaves around 7:10 because of some further engagements, but I'm sure that we will have plenty of time for Q&As. If you're okay with that, Mr. Florensa, first I will give the floor to the lady, of course.
I have the same problem, actually. I have to leave, because I have to go to Madrid and catch a plane. So maybe...
Let's be effective then.
Okay.
Italy, as much as Spain was one of the main advocates for the EU's new agenda for the Mediterranean, in that regard, Ms. Talbot, perhaps you could give us the Italian perspective to the agenda and the one on the challenges coming from the Middle East and North Africa region as seen from Rome or Milano, region that is inseparable part of the Mediterranean.
Thank you very much, Dragan. Thanks again for the invitation. Thanks to you and the forum. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon. So before starting focusing on the Italian perspective, I would like to say that today we cannot face future challenges if we don't address today's challenges, and the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted mutual interdependence and shared vulnerabilities. And this is particularly true when we talk about Europe and the Mediterranean. We know that the fate of Europe and the Mediterranean are closely intertwined, is closely intertwined. So it is the case today, and it was in the same when in the mid-90s when the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership was launched. At the time, the aim of the EU was to transform its southern neighborhood by fostering economic and political reforms. The logic at the core of the Barcelona process, which had the ambition, as Dragan remembered, to create an area of peace, stability, and shared prosperity in the Mediterranean. So the logic was to promote economic reforms as a catalyst for political changes, for political openings that at the end should have brought to democracy. It was the same transformative logic that the EU applied in its enlargement process with candidate countries. Of course, without the final goal of the EU membership that works as a great incentive. However, we know that for many reasons, for well-known reasons, this approach didn't succeed in the Southern Mediterranean neighborhood. Here, the priority of the EU has gradually shifted from transformation to stabilization, and this was especially evident after the Arab uprisings in 2011. Uprisings that made the region more fragmented, more unstable, and confrontational than it was in the mid-90s. Even before the Arab Spring, in practice, Europe opted for stability of regimes over transformation in the context of the global fight against terrorism after 9/11 and US intervention in Afghanistan. There was a decalage between what the EU declared in principles, so values, and what the EU member states did in practice, the interest. However, facing a more confrontational and fragmented region, the EU, which is traditionally a normative actor and not a geopolitical player, tried to adapt its policy to the evolving Mediterranean environment. We have seen that over the years, there have been several revisions of the European neighborhood policies but however, the instruments at the EU disposal, also the financial instruments, were not appropriate to face all challenges stemming from the region, above all security challenges stemming from the region. And we also know that the lack of an EU common foreign policy, along with the inability of the EU to talk with one voice, is a great liability that affects its effectiveness and the credibility of its external action. So divisions among the EU member states, which often have different interests and agendas in the Mediterranean, have not benefited the Union. Not only they have weakened the European external role, the EU external role, but they also have left room for a greater role and sometimes an assertive role of other players, both regional and external players in the Mediterranean area. This has been particularly evident in a regional crisis from Syria to Libya, where the intervention of external players has made the solution of conflicts more complex and difficult. In this regard, the new agenda for the Mediterranean explicitly mentions the commitment to unity and solidarity between EU member states as a precondition for the effective implementation of the agenda. This is, in my view, a very, very important point. Looking at the Mediterranean today, many challenges emerge: governance, socio-economic, security, environmental challenges. From an Italian perspective, there are two top priorities in the Mediterranean, in the wider Mediterranean region, as from an Italian perspective, we call the Middle East and North Africa region. First of all, stabilizing Libya, and second, addressing the migration issue, starting from stopping irregular flows, above all from the central Mediterranean corridor. On the stabilization of Libya, we have seen an important change in the last few months. And I mean renewed convergence of positions between France on one side and Italy and the other European member states on the other side. In supporting this convergence is in supporting the new Libyan transitional government that took office in March and is supposed to lead the country to general elections next December. It seems that eventually EU member states realized that only a unanimous support from the EU could make this fragile process viable. Of course, there are many challenges to face. We are just at the beginning of the process. Italy has worked very intensively for the stabilization of Libya over the last months, and the new government led by Mario Draghi has marked a change of pace by stressing on cooperation and multilateralism, also and above all in the EU framework as a precondition for Italian Mediterranean politics and for the Italian action to Libya in particular. Of course, without neglecting the Italian national interest. It's not by chance that Draghi chose to travel to Libya on his first official visit abroad as Prime Minister. At the same time, the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Luigi Di Maio, has been very active on the Libya dossier, trying also to working side by side with other European foreign ministers from France, Germany, Malta, and Spain. And we can see there is an attempt to make Italy a sort of pivot of a new European strategy for Libya. And in against this background, it's emblematic, the bilateral meeting between French President Macron and Draghi. They agreed after years of divisions to cooperate in Libya and to cooperate in the Sahel. So it is from our point of view, an important step forward to overcome previous divisions. And we have seen yesterday the commitment of the EU to work together. Of course, EU member states have to prove they are able to move from words, from declarations to action. And it's important not to miss this opportunity and to avoid any return in Libya to conflict. Any conflict would marginalize the EU as a player in Libya. Closely linked to Libya for Italy are, first of all, the migration file, which is crucial to Italy for also its domestic implications. Here, however, it seems that for Rome it would be more difficult to find the EU solidarity. Second point related to Libya is the fight against terrorism, any kind and any form of terrorism. And in third point is the security of energy supply. We know the Italian energy company Eni has a long-standing and deep presence in Libya, and it has also a more recent presence in the Eastern Mediterranean, operating the greatest gas field of the coast of Egypt, along with the gas fields of the shores of Cyprus. It goes without saying that stability in the Eastern Mediterranean is also crucial for Italy. And from an Italian point of view, there is no stability without engaging Turkey, although Turkey's assertive posture and also Turkey proved to be a difficult partner. We will see what will be the result of on the EU-Turkey dossier of these 2 days meeting summit of the European Council in Brussels. This, the importance of the Eastern Mediterranean explains why Rome worked last summer along with Germany for a constructive dialogue with Ankara. And this approach eventually prevailed. The EU presented a positive agenda to relaunch cooperation with Turkey, although there is awareness that the process will be not easy at all. Positive agenda that includes a stick and carrots approach, so the option of sanctions remain on the table in case Turkey will diverge from this path of cooperation. It is stated in the positive agenda. What I see, and I'm going to the conclusion, what I see is a sort of new diplomatic momentum in the region, and several attempts to overcome crisis, to overcome instability, to mend fences. And the new Biden administration, stressing on diplomacy, has played as a driver, an intentional driver of this diplomatic momentum. This shift to diplomacy provides the EU with an instrument that it can play very well. And it is a room for the EU to play a greater role also in cooperation with the US. And I think that this window of opportunity has to be seized, although there are many challenges and the process of openings remain fragile. I'll stop here, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Valeria. It was very interesting when you mentioned Libya and Turkey as well is involved there. We would see what comes out with the Russians being there. Would there be a new military base? Because there is no free lunch. They are helping General Haftar there. And of course, Libya is one of the key points when it comes to migrations and, you know, this migration track in the middle of the Mediterranean coming to Lampedusa. And you have mentioned Turkey. We go now to Spain, who might be one of the biggest, I would say, advocates or proponents of Turkey's membership to the EU through the years. And this has been, I would say, state politics, both for Socialist and Partido Popular. If you would agree with me, Mr. Florensa, and they very much say that Spain has 3M in its foreign policy. It's Mediterranean, multilateralism, and Morocco, that we could tackle later. Regarding Morocco, there is no agreement when it comes to political consensus in Spain. But from your point of view, what are the main challenges and what is the Spanish perception or interest in this new EU agenda for the Mediterranean?
Okay, so thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for inviting me to be in this session. And I salute very much the Foreign Policy Forum at Zagreb, which I hope will give good results as a new partner in these endeavors in foreign policy, and especially in Mediterranean affairs. Okay, yes. Well, and it's a pleasure to be with you as President of the Executive Committee of the European Institute of the Mediterranean, which has participated all along this process of creating the Mediterranean, EuroMediterranean policy. Well, in fact, it is true that Spain has always been very much involved in it, and it's been really at the heart of the matter of this Euro-Mediterranean policy since the beginning, and I would even say since before the beginning. Okay, we have been there since the beginning because we perceive that we are in the first front of what is going on in the Mediterranean, so that we will receive the results, good or bad. And at the same time, we feel that we have to take care not only of our bilateral relations with Mediterranean countries, but to be very active in the multilateral aspect of these relations, because we think that not Spain, nor Italy, or France, or even Germany, or others, no single country in Europe is capable by its own to bring about the new, all that is needed to bring about the modernization of the South Mediterranean countries. And this is why we have always been pushing for a more powerful and a more effective Euro-Mediterranean policy. Okay, so this is why we have been there all the time. And wait a minute, because can you see me in the screen? Yes, because
yes,
I see other. Well, something else appeared. Okay. Well, okay. So in fact, we can say that well, the priorities you mentioned were could be one of the priorities, because it usually there has been an agreement across parties in Spain and all governments since the establishment of democracy in the new constitution in mid-70s, that we have kind of a triangle of priorities. One is Europe, of course. We are a very active member of the European Union. And second, and third, you may take it in the order if you want, according to the people, but in Spain, everybody would put that either on second or third place, the Mediterranean and Latin America. So Spain is at the same time a European country, is a Mediterranean country, and is an Atlantic country. And we have very strong ties with all the Latin American countries and even with the United States, of course, where, by the way, there are more than 50 million people speaking Spanish. But we have been very active in the Mediterranean. In fact, the changes that led to the Barcelona process, we are celebrating this month because, as you remember, last November was the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process. So this year is the 25th anniversary of the launching, really, the putting in at work the Barcelona process. Several things changed, which explain things even today. One is the enlargement of Europe to the south, with the entry of Spain and Portugal in '86, and Greece had been just before in '84, I think it was. Okay, and then there was another thing which is very important and which involves especially Spain, because in fact the whole Barcelona process till today is kind of a double pact. First, there is a pact among Europeans because usually I explain it saying that the EuroMed process did not start in '98, but in '89 with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Why? Because at that point, Germany saw the double opportunity of the reunification of Germany and to bring closer to the Western Europe, the Central and Eastern European countries. So for the German reunification, it was clear that it was its own thing to do. But attracting the rest of the Central and Eastern European countries to the Western Europe had to be a task of the whole of the European Union. And that was the occasion, because there was a pact. In fact, the leaders of that moment in Europe understood it very well. And especially, I would say, Chancellor Kohl and Felipe González, who were very close friends, although one was a Christian Democrat conservative, and another one was a socialist, so that there would be finally, the pact was very, very explicit at the Cannes summit, in European summit in June '95, so that there would be a big European policy toward the East, in exchange for the fact that there would be a great European policy to the South. And this pact of June '95 is what gives place to the launching of the EuroMediterranean Partnership, the Barcelona process, in November that year. Okay. This evolved along the years with two, I would say, reinforcements. It is usually said that the EuroMed partnership didn't work, etc. I do not agree with that. It has not been up to the incredible expectations we had. But I am sure that without the Euro-Mediterranean partnership, things might have been, or would have been actually, much, much worse. And even with the change in these countries, when I go to Morocco now, for example, and I remember Morocco when I visited Morocco 30 years back, it is not the same country. It has evolved, although probably not sufficiently, but it has progressed. And the countries that have progressed the most are precisely the countries that have played the game of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership. And this has been Morocco and Tunisia and Jordan in the first place, and then some others. And the countries who refused clearly to participate, even, that was the case of Syria, of course, Libya, and you've seen the different directions in which they have evolved. And quite frankly, I think that I can
Have you lost Mr. Florensa?
jam. That's what we pretended. We pretended of a virtuous circle. King of the Barcelona process, we thought that, well, political, as Valeria mentioned, it was a political project, but it had an economic engine. It was a political project to build around the Mediterranean, an area of peace and stability, an area of shared economic progress, an area of intercultural dialogue among the people and nations around the Mediterranean. But it had an economic engine that was mainly the project of creating around the Mediterranean a free trade zone that would engage investments, well, first trade attracted by the European big market just across the sea, that would engage the investments and the creation of jobs, etc. Very nice virtuous circle. But this did not happen because one of the ingredients was reforms, because the second part of the pact was a pact north-south. And the pact was that Europe was ready to help these countries to modernize their institutions, their legislation, their economic, mainly institutions, I would say, and even in the political institutions, etc., and advocate for an opening of the country, for attracting investments, etc. And the reforms only happened very, very slowly, if they did at all in some respects. So this lack of reform is what damaged the possibilities of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership, and then the incredible amount of tension and violence that fell upon the Mediterranean area from eastern, geographically, from the first in Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and they were in Syria, and now in Libya, etc., etc. It was not possible at the beginning to foresee the bad influence that would fall upon the Mediterranean, and not only the Mediterranean, but the whole of the world. In fact, it is true that we are today, in this respect, of course, much, much worse than we were at 95. But okay, these effects do not hinder the fact that the countries that have played the game of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership have found in that line of conduct their best possibilities for progress, modernization, and so on, as we see in the countries that have played the game, as I said, of the Barcelona process. Now, there have been two big reinforcements of this Barcelona process. One was first in the bilateral part with European Neighbourhood Policy, which, as you know, is directed to the bilateral relations of the European Union as such with each one of the member Mediterranean partner countries. And well, President Prodi, when it was launched, I was then ambassador of Spain to Tunisia, and he came to Tunisia to explain it to the Tunisian authorities, and then they invited the foreign ambassadors created in Tunisia, and he said that thing of the everything with institutions. So that partner countries, Mediterranean partner countries, would be able to get into the European internal market as much as they wanted, and to integrate themselves in the European, I would say, in the Euro-Mediterranean economy. Some have advanced most in that line. Morocco is a case, very, very clear case. Tunisia, although now they had this wonderful democratization, but they have many social and economic problems, but they advanced a lot in that line. No? Okay, so this was the trend that was followed, and then a reinforcement of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership multilaterally in the region with the Union for the Mediterranean. I think it was a good achievement to have both things, because it was a clear reinforcement of the tools that we had in the classical, I would say, Barcelona process. So the classical Barcelona process is from 95 to, let's say, 2005, and then from 2005 the European Neighbourhood Policy is put at work, and then, as you know, in 2008, 2009, the Union for the Mediterranean is launched. And so this is the first time when this Euro-Mediterranean partnership is given a substantial institutional framework with a general secretariat established, as you know, here in Barcelona. Of course, it has evolved because now the important thing was not what was said by President Sarkozy at the beginning to perform or to bring about, he said, structural projects of the Mediterranean area. The important thing today of the Union for the Mediterranean is that it is the forum, the central place for the Euro-Mediterranean concertation of policies. And because, for example, the Secretary General of the Union for Mediterranean is the only one who is participating in all different formations of the EuroMed ministerial conferences. So there are ministerial conferences of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, where Ministers of Foreign Affairs attend, or of Ministers of Industry, the ones who attend, etc. The only one who is attending all those meetings is the General Secretary of the Union for the Mediterranean. And this gives the Union for the Mediterranean a very important capacity. Okay, so these two reinforcements have brought about the instruments that we do have now. Unfortunately, we have all these problems that have brought about this increasing complexity of the Mediterranean, and the European Union and its member countries have tried to respond to it, especially after the Arab Springs, as you know, because there was a renewal of the EuroMed policies with the M's, with money, and then migration or mobility, etc. And now, to commemorate, so to say, the 25th anniversary, we have this other, well, the joint communication of the European Parliament and the Council, the renewed partnership with the Southern Neighbourhood, a new agenda for the Mediterranean. And in this new agenda for the Mediterranean, in fact, what we are doing is to add some additional priorities to what we had. The traditional priorities were much more centered in the socio-economic aspects, if you want, to promote trade, to promote investment, to create jobs. And another thing which is very important for the dialogue, intercultural dialogue, and so on, the participation of civil society. In fact, what we are doing now is to add some other priorities of different character and different origin. As it is said in the joint communication, the policy areas, the priorities, first, human development and good governance and the rule of law. This is traditional. In fact, this is very important because in Article 2 of all the association agreements that were signed by the different Mediterranean partner countries, always there is an Article 2 of the shared values, so that whenever there are problems with some of these affairs, human rights, etc., in the Cooperation Council every year, the Association Council at the end of the year with the foreign minister of that country, the European side may ask, how is it going with this affair or the other? Because it is declared in the Article 2 of the association agreement as of common interest. Well, so this is traditional. Then second policy area, strengthen resilience, build prosperity, and now new thing, digital transition. And then peace and security. This has been increasingly important, although, as it has been said before, we could hardly say that we have the tools to deal with all of the security peace affairs. But we can be a very, very active participant along with our allies, etc. And now we come. You mean you are mute? I cannot understand you. Eh? Okay, that we are short of time. Okay. Then there comes migration and mobility, which of course was always there, but has been increasingly important. And then the fifth area that's pointed out in the joint communication is green transition, climate resilience, energy and environment. So this is, energy was always there, of course, but this new awareness of that it is not only economic progress, social, etc., which is at stake, but even our planet that is at stake. This is this new conscience, this new attitude that's integrated, and so it is kind of the translation of the development goals of the United Nations into the goals or the projects of the EuroMediterranean Policy. And this has to be dealt with Union for the Mediterranean. So maybe if you ask me so, I will stop there and I will be ready for any questions to answer.
Thank you very much for this first part. If I just may add that one of the good things of the Barcelona process is that that was, if I'm not wrong, the only format within which Arab and Israeli delegations met regularly outside of the UN, for instance. But one of the bad consequences of those plans is that the poverty and wealth gap between two shores of the Mediterranean coast is the largest in the world today. So many of those aims certainly have not been fulfilled. I give the floor to colleagues, perhaps with some of their remarks or interventions or questions for our speakers. I see Italian Ambassador, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon. Congratulations to the Foreign Policy Forum for organizing this new session of our interesting meetings, and congratulations to the two keynote speakers, which has provided us with really comprehensive picture, though in a synthetic, necessarily very, very synthetic way, because the each and every single issue that they briefly touched upon could deserve a full roundtable or panel. But my question is very, very specific, and it's related to the fact that we are in Zagreb, though I mean you are in different spots, but we are in Zagreb and we follow with great attention the renewed Mediterranean priority of Croatia. Croatia is asking to be admitted in the Med7 club, so to say. Italy is very much supportive of that. Croatia is regularly invited since last year to now little add for ISPI to the Med-Rome dialogues together with Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Italy and ISPI. My question to the two speakers, we would really benefit from their experience and expertise by seeing how you see, how you can sort of understand Croatian value added in this wider Mediterranean picture, because we have, frankly speaking, not heard too much from Croatian leaders about their policy positioning, their, let's say, priorities when asking to be members of this Med7 club, and more generally in the Mediterranean framework. We know more about maybe 3 Seas initiative or Bosnia, of course, dossiers, the priority issue for Croatia, and the Schengen and other priority topics for Croatian foreign policy, but we do not really know too much about Croatian positions in Mediterranean, maybe the hottest Mediterranean dossier. So in your views, what could be Croatian value added as a clearly Mediterranean state, and as clearly, as it's also stated in the second Plenković government, the Croatian government self-defines, so to say, Croatia as a Central European and Mediterranean state. Thank you very much.
Floor is yours. I just need to say that the next, if I'm not wrong, EuMed 7 summit is going to take place in the Athens in September.
Yeah, well, to answer to this point, I would say that Croatia may play a very important role because it reinforces in a very important way what I would call the Mediterranean southern part of European Union. At the beginning, we were only, well, Italy, France, Spain, well, and Greece, of course. But now we had much more numerous, and so this is very important. The fact is that it is not usually very much heard because Croatia, along with all other countries in its area, was a bit absent because they were not part traditionally of the Barcelona process, because they had their own approach with their relations with the European Union. But with the accession to the, well, first with the creation with the Union for the Mediterranean, Croatia became part of the Union for the Mediterranean. And then, of course, because of the accession to the European Union, it is expected to become a very, very active participant in the Euro-Mediterranean politics. And I am sure that not only we Spaniards, but Italians and French and Portuguese and others in Southern Europe expect a very active role of Croatia with us in the EuroMed policies, and not against the North, because it's kind of that pact I was mentioning before. I was very happy when Frau Merkel, the Chancellor Merkel, said, well, but because now, because of the Barcelona process and so on, Germany is a Mediterranean country. Okay, good. Why? Because it's a member of the European Union who is a Mediterranean area. So she was perfectly right, but we have to convince not only the Chancellor Frau Merkel, but all other Northern Europeans, and you can help us very much. Okay, I'm done.
Valeria, perhaps? Okay, I would like just to add that, as Senén said, Croatia was not at the beginning in the Euro-Mediterranean partnership in the European Neighbourhood Policy. It was included in the broader Mediterranean family, if we would like to call it in this way, with the Union for the Mediterranean. That's why it has not played a front-runner role, but because it was included in another section of EU relations with partners before it became EU member. But I think I agree with Senén that Croatia could play an important and an active role for stability in the area and in the important dossier like migration, for example. So, and I'm glad that that Croatia participated to the Rome dialogues. It was very, very important because, as the ambassador knows, not always other EU member states accepted the invitation to take part in this important forum led by by Italy, the Italian Foreign Ministry, in cooperation with the ISPI. So it's important for us that Croatia was there and hopefully will be there in the future edition.
If you allow me, I would add that this meeting of today is important in that respect, because, for example, I present my excuses, but I didn't know about your organization in Croatia, this forum on foreign policy. And so it's a new partner for us I mean Italians and Spaniards, etc., to participate in these discussions and to push the European institutions and governments, both north and south of the Mediterranean, to play the game, because it is a positive thing, the best they could do.
Professor Jovic.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I would just like to add also, from my point of view, this to help in a way to construct this argument that Croatia should pay more attention, I think, and should be more active in the Mediterranean policy. I mean, I was, for example, I remember a member of the advisory board of Unlimited Foundation. That was one form of Croatia at that time, before actually joining the European Union formally, being somehow involved. But it was always my impression, in a way, that Croatia somehow entrapped itself into this debate between Balkans and Europe, you know, East and West, or Southeast and Northwest somehow dimension. And that debate, whether the identity of Croatia, expressed then through its foreign policy priorities, is more Balkan or European, has somehow reduced other options and opportunities in Croatian foreign policy. And it seems to me this is a pity, because, you know, when people come to Croatia over summer in particular, what they actually see is they see Mediterranean country. I mean, most of them do come to Mediterranean areas and they very much like it. And in a way, I mean, looking from the purely constructivist point of view, it is then very difficult to understand why is the country not using more this Mediterranean aspect, but rather talks about its differences between whether it belongs to the Balkans or to the European Union. And I think something has been done, or at least an attempt, you know, whatever we think of this, to enforce the northern dimension of Croatian foreign policy through this Free Seas initiative. Still, I think more needs to be done on the Mediterranean front. I think for Croatia, to summarize it, and I'm going towards the end with this, is in fact, Mediterranean is important economically. I mean, for the reasons of tourism, but also for fishery and other reasons. It is very important for the image of the country and for the identity of the country. It's also important from ecological point of view. I think Croatia could be a champion, or should be a champion, of a clean Mediterranean in many ways, and therefore contribute to global climate change and global environmental issues as well. And of course, I mean, I think that further development of these areas, the islands and so on and so forth in Croatia, which are really very many, would also be much welcome from the demographic point of view. So Croatia really has all the reasons to be much more present. So thank you so much.
My next question goes to the ex-Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Pusic. Have we lost our Mediterranean identity, and why Croatia, there is a sentiment it's not so much involved, perhaps, not just in this M7 group, but as well in the past in the Mediterranean initiatives?
Well, for that, there was a very practical reason. We were for years focused on joining the European Union and NATO, and we worked on that, and that was what we did in foreign policy. But there was also another reason, and this is, I would say, the aspect of our identity we like the most ourselves is the Mediterranean aspect. We have the Central European, Balkan, Mediterranean, but when we want to sort of complement ourselves, we think of ourselves as being Mediterranean. However, the thing is there sincerely speaking, genuinely a possibility of having a Mediterranean common policy on anything? And how feasible it is to get France and Spain and Italy and the southern coast of the Mediterranean, enormously important countries like Egypt, like all of the troubled but big, important, populous countries of the southern Mediterranean. It is an important region, but it's marginalized. It became somehow pushed to the sidelines. From the European point of view, however many compliments you receive, it's usually seen as neighborhood policy, as sort of something that's out there, but not really in the focus. And one problem with this is that it's very difficult to find a common streak, a connecting theme, a connecting policy that would bring the countries of the Mediterranean together, apart from an enormous common interest, which is the Mediterranean Sea itself. So the location, climate, environment, all of these things that have come into focus lately. But the question is whether there is a possibility of actually forging any common policy there. My sort of second comment here is Turkey. Turkey is extremely important here. And it is in a way in a funk, politically speaking, at the moment. And the question is, it will have influence one way or another. But the question is what kind of influence it can have now and what kind of cooperation it can have with the Northern Mediterranean countries. I would say that to a large extent, Turkey at the moment is probably more looking at the conflict or politically using even the potential conflict or differences between the Southern and Northern Mediterranean rather than bringing the area together, although there is, I think, no dilemma that it has a strong influence. And finally, one possibility where Croatia is a very small Mediterranean country, but as I said, proud of its Mediterranean identity, would maybe contribute is the memories of the non-aligned movement. There were very close ties between countries like Croatia, Yugoslavia at that time, which Croatia was a part of, and Egypt, for instance, and a number of countries in the Southern Mediterranean that can be, and these contacts can be and might be used maybe to try to somehow bring closer together the Southern and Northern Mediterranean. In some ways, Croatia might find itself in a position where it's sort of sidelined by the big EU member states, like Spain and France and Italy, but at the same time recognized by Southern Mediterranean states because of this non-aligned history. So these are my three questions, comments, and if you would care to say something about it. Thank you.
And just to give the floor to the Spanish ambassador, Descallaga Alonso, just to tackle one thing more in the discussion. Prior to your mandate to Croatia, you have been ambassador of Spain in Mauritania, if I'm correct, and the problem of migration and challenge of migration. There are some estimations that for 20 years, every other climate refugee will be Mediterranean from the southern coast. As well, from your perspective and your expertise, how do you see and Spanish interests there as well, this part of migration route coming from Morocco? What are the challenges?
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to share with you a feeling that I had when I arrived here. And I was surprised by the lack of attention that Mediterranean had in the Croatian foreign policy. I was surprised because Croatia is a Mediterranean country, obviously, and it has the possibility to use this card as a Mediterranean country to participate in the forum, in the fora of the Mediterranean countries, to offer its experience and at the same time receive others' experience. So I'm quite happy now, seeing in the last times that I see an increasing interest in the Croatian authorities towards the Mediterranean. You have mentioned this interest in becoming a part of the Med7 initiative. I can say that Spain supports this wish of Croatia to adhere to this initiative, and the next, as you said, the next meeting summit is going to take place in Crete in September. So I think I see with great interest the increasing, the growing attention that Croatia is giving to this region, which I think it's very important because it's our neighborhood. And as you said, as you mentioned, one, there are many, we share challenges and we have to deal them together if we want to resolve them. One of them is migration, what you have just mentioned. Yes, I was ambassador to Mauritania, and at the time I arrived in Mauritania, there had been crisis, migration crisis, since in 1 year, more than almost 30,000 people arrive suddenly in the Canary Islands from not only Mauritania, but Morocco and Senegal. And we had to deal with this question. And we managed to set a strategy that, first of all, we tried to get the support of other European countries saying, listen, these people are coming and are passing and arriving at Spain, but they will try to go north. And this is a common problem. It's not just the problem of Spain. As it's happening in the Italian and in Greece and in Spain when these migrants are coming and try to go beyond. But the answer was quite, I would say there was not a supportive response. And we have to establish a strategy, which in the course of time was quite effective. And it was a global approach that tried at the same time improve or encourage regular or legal migration, because we are very aware that we need workforce in the European countries. Our population are getting older, and we need people who may come and help us to make our countries work. And legal and regular migration is the right channel. At the same time, to fight illegal migration, and because in this world, people are treated as goods, and the mafias play with them and have no respect for their lives. And besides, when they arrive illegally in our countries, they are treated badly. So we try to help the countries from origin and of transit to prevent and to deal with this wave of migrant people who try to cross them or come from them. And we develop a very important cooperation with these countries, reinforcing the police forces and with means and so on. At the same time, we also tried to improve the development of these countries so that people should not have to leave their countries, because we have to consider that people who leave are usually the more dynamic, the more active people, and it's a loss for the countries they live. And finally, we had to take into account the question of asylum and refugees, because that's a complete different aspect of migration. And this global strategy worked out. And when I left Mauritania in 2013, from 26,000 people who had arrived in the mid-20s, 26, 27, 20, when I left only that year, only 46 people arrived at the Canary Island coasts. But the conclusion the lesson I drew from my experience there is that this flow is not possible to stop. It's not possible to be stopped by walls. It's not possible to stop by just security measures, because there's a flow that if you raise a wall, you will try to overpass it and try to find new ways. So migration is a great and a clear sector where cooperation is essential, where we have to cooperate countries from origin, countries from transit, and countries as European countries. We from our side will never be able to solve with this problem, and we have to cooperate with them and try to understand that it's a common problem, and unless we establish a common policy and common ways of cooperation, it's not going to be stopped or solved.
Thank you very much.
As I said, not to stop. I said stop. It's not possible to stop it, but to try to find solutions and to allow people who want to come here find regular ways without risking their lives.
Thank you very much, Alonso. Perhaps just use this opportunity, because we are a bit short with the time now, our key speakers, to tackle the issue of Turkey that Madam Pusic has mentioned. What is your perspective from Rome or Milano, and then from Madrid or Barcelona, regarding the alliances that Spain has, or a strategic interest in the East Mediterranean, but as well Italy?
Who goes first? May I?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So Turkey is a very important player in the Mediterranean region and beyond the region. It has been very active and even assertive, and it is present in all crisis areas, in Libya, in Syria, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and Turkey wants to play and wants to be recognized as a regional player. The risk today is the overstretching, because Turkey is in Libya, Turkey is in Syria. And but at this very moment, Turkey is also trying to come out from the isolation. Is looking for friends, because it's assertive foreign policy. We don't have time to go in depth to analyze in depth Turkish foreign policy over the past 10 years, but. Although it has been very active, it has also been more and more isolated in the region. And in the last few months, over the last few months, we have seen attempts from Turkey to rapprochement with Egypt, with other Arab countries, for example, Saudi Arabia. Turkey, together with Qatar, has represented one of the main axes of confrontation in the geopolitical competition and the geopolitical dynamics for influence in the region. from and it has acted as a spoiler in the Eastern Mediterranean because it was excluded from a regional initiative related to the gas. I mean the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. So this forum, we can say, from which Turkey has been excluded, was a sort of a competitor for Turkey and for its ambition to play as an hub for energy in the region. Nevertheless, Turkey, from an Italian perspective, is an important player and also a partner, although a complex and a difficult partner over the last year. And but from an Italian perspective, it is important to talk with Turkey, to work with Turkey for stability in the Mediterranean. Without engaging Turkey, there is no stability in the Mediterranean. It's true that relations, European relations with Turkey has been more and more transactional. We know that the accession process has been frozen since years, and there is no perspective for negotiation to resume rebus sic stantibus. So it's important to relaunch cooperation in those issues important for the EU, important for Turkey. The EU is the main trade partner for Turkey, and the European countries are the main investors in Turkey. Also, Italy is a major investor in the country. Turkey is important, is crucial for a crucial dossier, which is migration today. And I stop here.
Mr. Florensa, would you agree that Spain really, it has a privileged position when it comes to talk with Turkey on behalf of EU? Spanish company owns 16% of the company developing Trans-Adriatic pipeline. Then in the banking sector, the Spanish company practically owns half of Turkey's largest bank. As well, geopolitically, Spain really has an economic interest of embracing Turkey into this Euro-Mediterranean perspective.
Yeah, well, first of all, I take the occasion to salute my friend, Ambassador Alonso de Escallar. ¿Qué tal, Alonso? Okay, and now I go for your question. Well, we have been supportive always of the Turkey joining the European Union. Because we think it is an important component of Europe and would enlarge the possibilities of Europe to deal with complicated parts of the world. The point is that, as it is well known, that Turkey has gone through a very important internal evolution. We at the European Institute of the Mediterranean used to have every year two very big seminars, very large seminars in Turkey, in Spain, or in Brussels, elsewhere, to promote their rapprochement to the European Union. That was back in 2006, 8, 9, 10. But then Turkey has in fact changed, because we were used to have this policy toward a Turkey who was of a Kemalist tradition, a modernizing tradition, pro-European in all senses, etc., and who had taken Europe as its main direction for its even economic progress. And by the way, it is always so. It is not only Spain. You mentioned some of the important investments of Spain, Turkey, but not only Spanish, but from other European countries, and all the progress. Well, I mean all, of course. The bulk of the progress of Turkey in the recent decades is because of the customs union they have with the European Union. Do not forget that. Because it is an exception in the partner Mediterranean countries, because all others have just an association agreement. They have much more. They have a customs union, and this is what has promoted the rate of growth and modernization, industrialization, etc. in Turkey. So it's been a success. It's been a success because of this special relation with Europe. But nevertheless, they changed their policy from Kemalist to, let's say, the country. And now they have this other policy, which some people, and I would agree with that, call neo-Ottomanist. So this, let's say, ideological attitude toward foreign policy, or power-oriented, if you want, but I feel it is more ideological, even so, to gain presence and importance in all, first in the Arab countries, which were into the Ottoman Empire, and then with the Turkish people and nations in Central Asia and Southwest Asia, to Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, all the stands. This is new. Probably they are right, because that makes them gain stature and weight to attain any other interests they have. But we will see how it evolves internally in Turkey, to combine the main interest with Europe. And
we would, Mr. Florensa, sorry for interrupting you. We would need to wrap up shortly, because Ms. Talbot as well, you don't want to miss your plane or train, and Ms. Talbot has other engagements as well. Valeria, just to wrap it up a bit, insight or look towards the horizon to the future, how do you see the future of Mediterranean? And we have not mentioned too much, the interests of big players being present in the Mediterranean, US a bit moving away from not just the Mediterranean, but the whole region of Middle East towards the Pacific. How do you find it? Is this going to be a geopolitical battleground in the future, or just Europeans are going to be involved and have their own interests here with the other shore of Mediterranean?
Yeah, I see the Mediterranean with the shadows and some lights. Some lights relating to the little window of opportunity that I mentioned before, and I think that the EU has to push this diplomatic momentum and try to work more and more close with the US. Of course, competition will not stop tomorrow. There is some signs of detente, of attempts to rapprochement, but there is also a race for arms in the region that is one of the most important importers of arms at the global level. So I don't see a stop of the competition, but hopefully the new Biden administration could work if there is the willingness to do it more closely with the EU in some dossier, for example, in Libya, maybe starting again a leading from behind.
Valeria, thank you very much for your participation. Not to miss your further engagements. Thank you to Milan, to ISPI, and we hope as a forum that we will have a fruitful and future cooperation in many ways, not just the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to be with you, and I really enjoyed the discussion. So thank you, and have a nice evening.
Yeah. Mr. Florensa, I just wanted to ask you, was it a problem, and then we wrap up with you as well, that through all these years, different European countries had different ways of handling Mediterranean? Spain was promoting very much Barcelona process, then European Union as such had the European neighborhood strategy, then Sarkozy came with perhaps the idea of renationalization of European Mediterranean politics. And then we know how it ended up with Union for the Mediterranean. So what do you see, in a future, on what viable grounds Mediterranean could go within the EU forward?
Okay, so can you see me? Because I see some problems in my screen.
Yes, we can see you clearly.
Okay. So thank you. So, well, we knew at the beginning, when we started the Barcelona process, that to bring about modernization of mentalities, of institutions, to bring about socio-economic transformation is not something that you can achieve from one year to the next. It is a long run, and unfortunately, it was not feasible to help South Mediterranean countries to make this big jump. I will give you a short example in the case of our friends in Morocco. To be a tiger, to be as the ones in the Southeast Asia, well, you need to have at least 6 or 7% for more than 15, 20 years of growth of the GNP. Well, Morocco, before joining the Barcelona process, was having in the 90s, in the early 90s, 1% growth every year, with very big differences because they were mainly an agricultural country, etc. From 2005 to 2000 to now, they increased. They are growing at 3.5, but this is, of course, much better, but it's not enough. That's the point. Meanwhile, they have achieved some kind of convergence in relative terms, but in absolute terms, they are falling behind because small growth of $30,000 or euro per year is a big quantity, and a bigger growth of a small quantity is a much smaller quantity. This is the fact. And so it is a very long run policy that has to be followed. Of course, there is a kind of attitude that, well, it lasts too long. It will last long, and if we can avoid the interference of the big problems that we have had, if we can achieve peace and people can work, etc., then we can foster the economic and social development of these countries, because this is finally the main objective of the whole of the Barcelona process, of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership, to close the gap between north and south of the Mediterranean, and to help these countries to become good partners for everything, and not a problem for themselves and for their neighbors. So that's it.
Thank you very much for your interventions as well, for being with us, to have such an experienced diplomat dealing so much of his time during the professional career with Mediterranean. It was a pleasure to have your insight and perspective. And I would perhaps close this session just with 2 or 3 numbers, and the prediction of Africanist Stephen Smith that predicts that in 30 years, the whole continent will number from 150 million to 200 million Afro-Europeans, and that in 2050, a quarter of Europeans will be of African descent, half of Europeans under the age of 30. I think that these numbers tells you a lot about the challenges, and it might be frightening as well in one way or the other if we do not have within the EU and as well within both shores of Mediterranean some kind of strategy or any kind of insight on the horizon, long-term strategy. Spain, as we know, has mentioned Mediterranean as one of the pillars of its foreign policy in the middle term for the next generation of diplomats. Hopefully Croatia would embrace as well its Mediterranean geographical and geopolitical identity much more. Thank you very much on behalf of our forum to all of you that participated on this quite hot day in this intellectual discussion, and I hope that we would be able to see you after summer recession as well.
So thank you very much for your invitation. It was a pleasure to be with all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, great.